Well, say good day to you this day of your time. How are you all? All right. All right. Thank you. Once again, we thank each and every one of you individually and all of you together collectively for the opportunity of interacting with you in this way. It is a great gift for us to experience through each and every one of you the facets of the multidimensional crystal of creation that you are. And we are grateful for this opportunity of exchange. We would like to begin this transmission with the title, The Storytree. Now, this is a permission slip that is kind of an interim neutral gear to something else that we have talked about. It goes hand in hand with it. You can use it however you wish once we explain how to use it. But the idea that we have talked about before that connects to this is the concept we have called the 13th step, which is the idea that understanding any change is a total change. Literally, if you are a new person in a new universe, you have a new history, and therefore, what may have been happening before is not something that actually ever happened to the new person you become. So the idea is understanding that you really are making that degree of change every single time you change anything. And in order to take conscious advantage of the fact that you really are at zero every moment and completely rewrite who you are, redefine who you are moment to moment, utterly and completely, we understand that for many individuals, because you are steeped in the process of change rather than having the concept of instantaneous change, we know that sometimes a process is necessary. So what we bring you in this transmission is part of the process, an interim step that you can use to practice shifting your energy in such a way so that perhaps one day, at whatever pace is comfortable for you, you can allow yourself to take full advantage of the fact that you're always changing utterly and completely into new people every moment in a new reality with a completely new history. But this will aid and assist you in creating a kind of neutral gear that allows you to shift a little bit more easily into that concept eventually and how to take full advantage of the structure of parallel realities. The story tree has to be done very precisely, and we will guide you in this precision through the explanation we are about to give. So if you are looking at your handout, the idea to begin with, if such things exist in your reality, is to start with what you might consider to have been in your life one of the more dramatic or profound or impactful negative experiences you have ever had. Whether it be from your childhood or last week, doesn't matter. The point is if you feel that you are still holding on to belief systems or memories of that experience and you no longer prefer them, then this can help you neutralize that experience, that idea. Because when you have a negative experience, and it may generate within you, especially when you are young, negative belief systems, then you start telling yourself a negative story about yourself. You start buying into the negative beliefs that may be generated from that initial negative experience. And when you create and generate that negative story, you tell yourself that story over and over and over again because that has now been ingrained within you, crystallized within your personality structure. And when you tell yourself that negative story, it reinforces the negative experience, which then reinforces the negative story, which then reinforces the negative experience, and around and around and around you go with seemingly no way out. But this permission slip offers you a potential way out through a graduated process of shifting the energy from negative to positive in the following way. Whatever it is you choose as that negative experience, whatever you choose to remember, whatever you choose to apply to this particular permission slip technique, this story street structure, let yourself begin with that. And when you then have it in your mind as to what you would like to choose, break it up into the moments that were the most impactful within that experience. Whatever seems connected to that experience, start creating segments, little tableaus, little moments within it, Separate them out. Now, in the diagram you have before you, there are 3, just for the sake of convenience and expediency, but you can break it out into as many moments as you wish. Just make sure that they really are representative of some of the most impactful moments of that negative experience. When you were the saddest, when you were in the most pain, when you were the most angry, whatever it is, pick the ones that are truly the strongest moments of that negative experience. So, allow us to simply use an example as we go along to help illustrate the point a little bit more clearly. Let us just assume for the moment, even though this may have nothing to do with you personally, but again, to illustrate, that the negative experience you are calling forth or remembering is that your father beat you. And then that can be one of the elements, the beating itself, that negative experience. But then whatever is associated with that, break it out into the next moment. Let us say again, to perpetuate the illustration, that from that experience, that initial experience, you then went into your room and spent hours in pain, in anger, crying. That's another moment. List that as the next moment. And then let's say, because you were afraid to come out, the next moment is you stayed in your room so long that you didn't eat and you became very hungry. You were starving. That's another moment. So now you have, in this example, this 3 moments that paint the picture of this negative experience. The beating, the fear, the crying, the release, the sadness, the anger, and staying in the room, and now the physical experience of being very, very hungry and experiencing that pain. Start with the initial moment, what we will call the negative scenario, that is A, moment A, and beginning with that, allow yourself to take that moment and start to just breathe through it, see it, replay it, breathe through it, start to neutralize it, start to step back a little bit from it, and start to see that moment replaying as if it's happening not to you. That it is more like a movie that you really don't have a strong connection to. You're watching the scenario play out, but you're watching it happen to someone else. I understand that can still cause stress, but allow yourself to remove, to breathe, to remove, to breathe. A little bit more, to neutralize, neutralize, neutralize all the emotions that went with that particular moment, so it just becomes a tableau running like a silent movie. Kill all the sound in it, dampen all the sound in it. Just see the images. Don't attach any meaning to it. Start to neutralize it. Now, before we go on, this is crucial. This is very important. This is one of the things we're talking about how this must be done very precisely. Understand that while you are doing this, this in no way, shape, or form is meant to be a denial of what happened. So don't think that this is just a glossing over so that you simply get to the point where you say, oh yes, that didn't happen to me. Acknowledge that it did. You're not letting that go for the moment. This is not the 13th step right now where you shift so abruptly that you know you have such a different history that this never happened to the new person that you are. That's not where we are at right now. This is an interim gear. This is a shifting process. So for the moment, understand, this is not a denial of what happened. But as you begin to neutralize and breathe through this, get to a point where you can settle with it a little bit, and then allow yourself to use your imagination and call upon the higher mind connection and start painting a picture that you would prefer instead of the one that originally happened. Maybe, again, to continue this illustration, the image goes from the beating to having your father hug you in a loving way, very proud of you, hugging you, loving you, and you feeling the embrace, the support, the love. Now, again, here's another very precise energy that needs to happen in this. Because it's not about saying this is what you would have preferred, not past tense, because that can lead to the experience or the state of being you would call regret. Keep it present. This is what you prefer now. as a tableau, as a scenario to replace the other one with. So keep it present, not past tense. And as you paint this picture, this replacement picture, feel that energy, feel what that is like, not what it would have been like, what it is like to experience that hug, that love, that support from that individual. Until it feels like it's starting to sink in, even just a little bit. It doesn't have to be all the way. Just change the energy to something more positive by using that tableau, that scenario, that visualization as a guide. And once you feel that you have that present in you as an energy, as a state of being, then allow yourself to go back to the negative B scenario, being in your room, crying, so on and so forth. Bring that up into neutralization just as you did with scenario A. Breathe through it. Start to see it. Start to dissociate from it. Again, not a denial. Just an energetic dissociation. Neutralize it. Let the sound go away. Just see it like a silent movie. Bring it to neutralization. But now, instead of doing exactly the same thing that you did with scenario A, go back to scenario A while that's in neutral, while B is in neutral, and look at scenario A and say, all right, I'm seeing this now. It's very different than the negative scenario. I'm experiencing this now in the present, the love, the support, the hug. Now, ask this question and do this projection. Now that you have the new scenario, the positive scenario A, how does scenario A actually change scenario B? Because now you have a completely new scenario that would lead to something else entirely than what it led to before, where you wound up in the room crying, feeling alone, feeling hurt, feeling angry, feeling sad, whatever it was. Now you have a new scenario. So what in your imagination would be the logical extrapolation from that? Create a whole new scenario B, not going up this way from the negative one, but going across from A as to what might be the next logical expression, the next logical scenario from what is going on in scenario A. Once you have that, a new scenario B that is positive, uplifting, loving, creative, whatever it is, whatever it needs to be, whatever it logically seems to be from what you created in scenario A, now do the same for scenario C. Go up with scenario C from the negative to the neutralization place, breathe through it, dissociate, neutralize, neutralize, neutralize. But again, instead of just continuing up this way, now go from what you created in scenario B in the positive level and go across and say, well, now what would be the next logical thing in scenario C that goes from that? And start going across to as many scenarios as you created until they are all a logical extension and extrapolation from scenario A, all in the positive vein. Once you have done that, then let the energy of all of those new scenarios, the positive ones, go up to a point to create and see that they are a new positive story that you are now telling yourself with different energy, and allow that to now emerge into a positive experience in life that will now reinforce the positive story, which will reinforce positive experiences, which will reinforce the positive story, and on and on. And now you're creating a new cycle, telling yourself a positive story. Again, understand very precisely, this is not a denial of what you believe may have happened in the negative context. It's not a glossing over. It is, however, a dissociation from the effect, the energetic effect of what happened, so that you can still be aware of that as part of your history, but you can dissociate from the negative effect to such a degree by practicing this over and over again and creating a positive version of this idea and a positive energy and a positive effect, so that you start really telling yourself a positive story about yourself, so that you disconnect from the negative story you were given. It doesn't take away the scenario, but you start no longer feeling the negative effect of the negative story. You start feeling the effect of the positive story. And this creates a conundrum, a paradox within you at that moment. Because while you can still see the negative tableau, you start actually feeling the positive energy. And again, very precisely, don't assume that this means that you're supposed to feel that you prefer the negative, that the positive feelings you're feeling while you're still viewing the negative doesn't mean that you're supposed to say, yes, that was okay for that to have happened. That's not what we're saying. But it is a technique that over time, by doing it again and again, will start to build up a positive energy within you where you will start automatically telling yourself a more positive story about yourself, and perhaps eventually you will allow yourself to do this strongly enough that this can function as a neutralized shifting of gears to allow you to begin to experience truly more and more of the effect of consciously shifting to parallel realities, where you now know you are telling yourself such a positive story and guiding yourself through these parallel reality changes so naturally that you now can begin to consciously feel that you really are a different person, really in a different reality, with really a different history, to whom the negative scenario never occurred. But this particular technique is the middle point of that. And it doesn't have to happen right away. You can practice it as long as you need to, at whatever pace you need to, at whatever rate you need to create that shifting of that effect in your energy, because that's really all it's all about. Just create that energy shift so you start knowing how to automatically start feeding yourself positive stories about who and what you are, and can more and more and more and more detach from the idea that it really doesn't matter what has happened in the past. It's not a disavowing of it, but it's a way to start using it to build a positive energy in your life, a positive direction, a positive path, knowing that that scenario, as negative as it may have been, is still capable of delivering a positive and beneficial effect and energy in your lives, because you are capable of making this transformation. Is this clear? Yes. All right. So, allow yourself to take this permission slip, make it your own, use it however, whenever you wish. If your imagination and your higher mind wishes to alter it a little bit to fit you, then by all means let it do so. Go with the flow. This isn't rigid, it isn't strict, but it is precise in the ways that we have outlined it. So remember, it's not a denial of what happened in any way, shape, or form. Keep it present in the new scenario. It's not, this is what I would have preferred, but this is what I prefer now. And allow yourself to move forward knowing that it's not in any way, shape, or form an endorsement or a condoning of the negative, but it is an opportunity to release yourself from the effects of the negative by shifting the energy in your life and telling yourself the story of who you truly prefer to be. Does that make sense? All right, because you all contain that probability, that ability, that awareness to know your true selves, who you really are, your fundamental frequency, your essence. And the idea is to also remember throughout this entire permission slip when you are doing it, that any negative belief you may have about yourself, and this again doesn't mean that you can't have an honest assessment of where you may be going negative in life, but any negative belief is not really fundamentally capable of being true about you. You are an aspect of creation. You have the ability to create negative scenarios and experience them, but these are just projections. These are scenarios and have nothing to do with the actual representation of your core true self being an infinite, indestructible, eternal creator. That can never go away. That can never change. No matter what you may have been told, no matter what story you may have painted for yourself, those things can never change because they are a part of the structure and nature of existence, and so are you. And that will never go away. Does that make sense? Yes. All right. How do you feel? Good. All right.